So sugar imbalance, blood sugar imbalance is one of the biggest leading factor for inflammation in the body because it disrupts insulin and it disrupts your body's stress response, okay? And it's a long cascade. We need like a full episode to talk about the cascade of events. But sugar is the most common inflammatory trigger. Number 2 is
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AUD podcast channel. We have a very special guest with us today, Ms. Tina Chagoury. Tina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for your time, really appreciate it. So Tina, when I was doing my research about your work, so I know you've been in the nutrition clinical space for over 20 years. I know you also are a breast cancer survivor, and that experience really changed how you viewed medicine, hormones, inflammation, all these things. And what I wanted to do for today's conversation is give people a general information about what are the things they need to know when it comes to all these areas. Because speaking from myself, from experience, I've gone through my own health journey, and I remember there was a phase I went through so many different doctors, but all the tests are coming up fine, but I'm still having stomach issues, I'm still having headaches and stuff. And then, b'sudfa, my chiropractor, he's like, have you checked your gut health? And I'm like, what is gut health?
What is gut health?
Exactly. So, and then I went down that whole path of figuring all that out. So what I've realized through that experience is there's so much information out there that no one knows about. And not only that, how do I get that information and from who?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I wanted to discuss today. But before we get into all of that, Tina, why don't you give all of us a little bit of background about yourself, and we'll take it from there.
Yes. So like you said, Khalid, I've been in Dubai actually for 20 plus years. Right after my graduation, I came here. I started practicing conventional nutrition. I co-founded one of the most successful healthy catering businesses here. I loved my job. I still love my job. I'm a mom of 2. I am a breast cancer survivor. I've gone through my own personal struggles with breast cancer and loss and grief and everything else. And I find myself advocating very strongly for women's health, for women's rights, for women's independence, because I literally lived this. I lived being dismissed. I lived being left alone. I lived everything. Besides the fact that I studied nutrition and I did a master's in public health and I did a specialization in functional hormones nutrition. I'm a woman at the end of the day, and I'm a mother. So all of this combined together give me, one, the passion about women's health in general, and hopefully the knowledge and to benefit women and people in general around me.
So just to touch on that experience briefly, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because you said after you went through that experience with the breast cancer that it opened your eyes to a lot of questions. Like, why did this happen? Where does this come from? And I can imagine for someone like yourself who has all that clinical knowledge to be frustrated in where I can't find that answer.
Yeah.
So what was the biggest learning, I guess, from a knowledge perspective going through that experience?
Listen, I feel like 2019 I was diagnosed, or actually 2019 I was doing my treatment for breast cancer. That year, it cracked me open, and it just brought out something from within, a person that I didn't know before. And it's it was a good change. Unfortunately, it was a painful one, but it was a good change. It's as if you opened a box, you jumbled everything, and then you pulled something. That's exactly how I feel when I think of it, because my beliefs got jumbled, my principles, everything I knew about health, about nutrition, about food, about healing, about everything I was taught, I had question marks. It's as if, the universe was telling me, so you think you know? Show us. So this is why, after my breast cancer treatment, I had so many questions that I'm a clinical nutrition by degree, and I have a master's in public health, but that doesn't give me all the answers, obviously, when it comes to cancer and oncology. But even the answers related to weight, to food, because I was, after my breast cancer treatment, at 39, I was on induced menopause. Yes, and medically induced menopause is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, women usually take 10 years to enter menopause, so the body gets ready. So it has 10 years for the hormones to drop, for her to adjust, for her weight, for her mood, for her skin. Women, because it's not only cancer that puts women in induced menopause, it could be premature menopause, it could be a treatment that she had to go through. So women who go through induced or medically induced menopause would understand what I'm saying. It's an extremely traumatizing experience, like literally overnight. I woke up normal, normal period, normal hormones. I slept, with normal, and I woke up menopausal. So this, to me, was the biggest question mark. Like, why did no one explain this to me? Why does no one explain this to us? Me, as a clinical dietitian, I didn't learn much about menopause. All I was taught are, these are the symptoms of menopause that you should monitor with women who visit you after 60 or 55. Hot flashes, weight gain, mood swings, and then that's the end of it. What you should change in their health and their behavior, are there protocols, are there supplements? Because when we learn in university about pregnancy, we spend maybe 2-3 weeks learning about what a pregnant woman should eat and not eat, how to improve breastfeeding, all of this. Not every woman will get pregnant, but every menstruating women will go through menopause, imagine. And this applies to us as dietitians, but also medical doctors. That's the extent of learning they get in menopause and in hormones.
Because you mentioned on one of the podcasts I watched that in those 6 years of training of all the clinical stuff, all these things, you only had about an hour's worth about like hormones and stuff. So hormones is it's like a black box, to me at least, in the sense of the general public, we have and this not just applies to women, but to men also. We don't understand our hormones. We don't understand what triggers them. We don't even understand, like, how do I know when they're off balance? Is this stomach pain from something I ate?
Yeah.
Is it my hormone? So could you walk us through if I came to you as
the 101.
A 101,
Okay.
Hormones.
Okay, so hormones, there's a specialty for hormones.
Yes.
Endocrinologists are specialized
Yes.
in all hormones. The missing link is the literacy. Why? Because we all know what cholesterol is. We all know what diabetes is. We all know what blood pressure is. But we're not familiar with estrogen, cortisol, insulin. These are the hormones that affect our life so deeply. As in women and men. So you have stress hormones, cortisol, you have insulin that regulates how your body metabolizes sugar. And you have testosterone for men and women. You have progesterone and estrogen for women and sometimes for men too. So all of these terms, we only recently you would see them on social media.
Exactly.
Before it was like, why would you want to know about estrogen if you're not pregnant, or if you're not going through IVF, or if you're not menopausal on hormone replacement therapy? So it was literally some people needed to know. Hormones are proteins in the body.
Okay.
They're messenger. Protein is the biochemical, if you want, composition of them. So they're messengers. So you have to picture them like literally messengers going up and down the body. And who produces these hormones in the bodies, in our body? Glands. Any organ that produces hormone, we call it a gland. To name a few, the pancreas is a gland. The adrenals are glands. The thyroid is a gland. In our brain, we have glands that produce hormones. So we have glands all over the body that produce hormone, okay? These hormones, if in the best case scenarios, in the perfect world, they're communicating. One increases, it tells the other to decrease. This one tells the other, okay, you take over. They're working like seamlessly. But it's enough for one of them to get disrupted, to disrupt the whole system. Because hormones are all interconnected. Whether I say, if I tell you insulin, which insulin is secreted by the pancreas and it regulates our blood sugar, right?
Yep.
And it's something that we've been hearing more and more about, blood sugar spikes, insulin, because it is very important, because it's a very important hormone to know about, and it's a very important pathway to understand. But Insulin doesn't work independently. Insulin is connected to cortisol. Cortisol, the stress hormone, doesn't work independently. Cortisol is connected to estrogen. And estrogen and cortisol and insulin don't work alone. They're all connected to nutrients that we take. We need the catalysts. You know, they all form chemical reactions in the body, and they all take us through, changes in the body, but they can't work alone. So they need the catalysts. And the catalysts are the nutrients, the vitamins, the food we eat, the outside pressures, stress, all of that. All of these are catalysts that could either hinder your reactions or trigger it and stimulate it and help it.
So on that point, so I did a genetic test once for methylation, right? To see how, my body's processing, it's more focused on digestion. And it was just so fascinating when you understand where the breaks are and that you can supplement for them to counteract that balance, how much benefits you can have. But the challenge is, to your example, is if all these are linked, right? Cortisol affects insulin, whatever. Then the question I think about is, if everything's linked and I don't know what's affecting what, I kind of have to...
Where do I begin?
Exactly, I have to map out, okay, start here, this is what's happening here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So is that kind of what you do when you work with clients, for example?
Okay. Exactly. We put the map, like you said, we put a framework, and then we start with the most urgent, because there's always one that's more urgent than the other. And we start with the one that we can adjust, because some of them you can't adjust alone with food. Some of them have reached to a point of imbalance where you need pharmacology or medical intervention. And some of them you can easily reverse, you can easily balance, you can easily work on strategies to help your client reach to that goal. So yeah, that's exactly it. We put a map, literally a map, and then we start connecting the dots. And this is functional nutrition.
Okay.
It's exactly that. It's connecting the dot to get to the root cause. It's not shutting down. You have a headache, take this. You have that. No. Why do you have a headache?
Yeah.
Is your headache linked to your gut? Are you having bloating? Is the bloating linked when you're stressed or not? This is why, Khalid, a consultation is a 60-minute one-on-one.
It has to be minimum.
You cannot sit with a patient for 10 minutes and expect to give him answers or her answers. You cannot. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But I completely understand where medical doctors come from, conventional. They don't have the time. They are pressured with scheduling. They are pressured with insurance companies. They are pressured with the whole system. It's not only on them. You know, the whole system needs to be changed for the patient to be given what she deserves.
Because to the point you made, the system, from my perspective, listening to you, it's built on treatment, not prevention. And I think
curative. Purely.
Exactly. And I think, so when you talked about where's this headache coming from, for example, or why am I bloated, all these, if I'm someone who's I'm not feeling well, right? Traditionally, typically, I'll go to a medical doctor, just using my case as an example, and then I went to alternative doctors, functional, this and that. Would it be more beneficial to me to go to someone functional first, and then if you need medical intervention, go to that? Because it might not, might not need that. I can see you smiling, so there's you can't say yes or no. I know, I understand.
I have to be very careful
with
my
of course.
answer. I would say, if I were you, I would do both. It doesn't matter what comes first.
Yeah.
Do both, and you assess both visits and both outcomes, both feedback, and you decide, because at the end of the day, yes, I mean, obviously we don't know about medicine maybe, or as a layperson, he or she wouldn't know the details, but the judgment you are the only one who lives in your body, and you always have a gut feeling, right? So if you go to a medical doctor and the medical doctor tells you there's nothing, like you said, your blood tests look normal, and you still feel like something is off, and then you go to a functional or to an alternative medicine practitioner and you hear the answers, you can tell, okay, maybe this guy is pushing it, or maybe you would say, okay, this makes sense. And that's why we need to explain our findings. It's not like you sit with me and then I give you a treatment.
Yeah.
Me and you, we try to discover, okay, would that make sense to you? You tell me, mazbout, it would, because this and that. And it's a journey. It's a long journey.
Yeah. And I think that's the problem, in the sense of, as the individual, not only do you not know where to start. Let's say I came to you, okay, we work together, I'm feeling much better now. And then time goes on, life happens, it changes. I think the challenge for us as people is we don't have that knowledge for sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we work together for 3 months, I feel fantastic. But maybe in a year's time, I'm back to that. And I don't know what has changed or what's going on.
But this is the conventional approach.
Okay.
If you go with the functional approach combined with the conventional when needed, then you're not supposed to leave your journey or to finish your journey without this understanding. Because it's not very complicated, by the way. The moment you know why it happened, this is what we need to do to reverse it. You know now what to do to avoid it from re-happening or happening again, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not that, before it used to be very difficult because you were given what to do. You were just told, take this medicine. I'll give you an example, very simple example. A few years ago, someone I know very close to me came to me and told me that her doctor gave her gynecologist gave her metformin. Okay, gynecologist gave her metformin. In my mind, immediately I asked her, so you have PCOS or insulin resistance? She said, I don't know. I told her, but based on what he gave you the metformin, he said I should take it, it will help me. This was not 50 years ago. This was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. How is this even acceptable? Because there's an assumption that people wouldn't understand, wouldn't get it. Either they wouldn't get it, or they would overthink it, or I don't have time to do it. Those 3 are wrong. You have to find the time to do it. You have to give them, even if you give them a snippet of it, give her as much as she understands or he understands. Because this is an example of someone, if she didn't come to me and ask me and I didn't guide her, she would have taken, and by the way, she didn't need the metformin. She would have taken those metformin, lost maybe a bit of weight, but didn't learn anything, didn't solve the root cause.
Yeah. Since you're on the weight part, this is a subject that obviously I'm sure we have to bring up and talk about, the Ozempic, Manjaro debate.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to speak I have a very personal issue with this specifically because in my mind, first of all, it's a Band-Aid, not a solution. And I know there's so many studies that talk about the benefits. There's lots of studies that also talk about the risks. I'm not a doctor. I'm just talking from experience. But my philosophy is if I went back in time for the last 1,000 years since the history of books and about nutrition, there's not one book that's going to tell me, no, you should take this injection to help you. It doesn't exist. But the problem is we are focused, you touched on it in the podcast, the mindset is, my goal is I want to lose weight, not I want to be healthy. Those two are different things. And you said if you are healthy, the weight naturally will just, come off.
Balance out.
But the problem I see globally is that, number one, you can just anyone can buy this over the counter like I'm buying Panadol. That's insane.
This here is the problem.
That's insane to me.
That's the problem.
That should not be okay. No injection. I should go to the pharmacy and be able to just take it.
No.
So what's your? Sorry, I'm
very passionate.
Passionate about this one because I'm very against it personally. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. It's just my opinion.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Okay, so GLP-1 agonists like Mounjaro and Ozempic and the rest of it are tools. And these are tools that can be extremely beneficial for some people and extremely dangerous for others. So we will both agree on that. Now, when we say a tool, that's a little tool that you use to help you in whatever journey you're going through. They're not a treatment, they're not a solution, and they're not to be used without prescription, of course, and alone. They won't work. I mean, they would make you lose few kilos, maybe more than few kilos, but the moment you stop them, back from zero, back from under zero. Now, the reason why they work is because they mimic a natural protein in the body. But between bracket, I want to answer your comment about if you look in books in thousands of years, you won't find Akid, you will not find, because we as a human race have evolved a lot and have changed a lot. Even our biochemistry has changed.
Fair.
Our genes have changed. Our gene expression has changed.
I didn't think of
so
that.
the things we need now is very different from what our ancestors needed. Very different.
Fair.
So obviously you will not find them before. But they are very useful for people with insulin resistance, with diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, now heart diseases. They're finding inflammation. They're finding stuff. They're not new, by the way. They've been in the market for long, in studies for long, but because we've been hearing more and more of them, because they formulated them now in a way to help with weight loss more.
Yes.
They're more powerful.
Yes.
Now, the problem is when this woman, and I will mention women specifically, but men also.
Yeah, they do.
They go
of
to
course.
the pharmacy.
Yeah.
They buy it. They use it. It will cut their appetite. It will slow down their digestion and their stomach emptying. It will give them if you want, the satiety they're asking for. Here's the problem. Did you ask yourself why in the first place you've been struggling with this problem? Have you tried to solve? Have you tried to find out before solving? Have you tried to find out why you're someone who's constantly hungry? Why are you someone who's unable to lose weight when you tried? What is the imbalance in your body that led you to this? And this imbalance has been building up for years. Now, when you find out what it is and you start tackling the root cause, then in many instances, with my clients included, especially menopausal women and postmenopausal women, then comes the role of these GLP-1s, if needed, to come and give you this little push that you need at some point in time during your journey for a limited period of time, and then done. But then when you're off them, you already have everything. You have the habits, you've changed, you're building your muscles, you got used to strength training, you got used to eating a certain amount of protein, you know now your relationship with food, then khalas, it's fine. Then you wean yourself off them in a heartbeat.
I think it's very important to frame it the way you have as a tool that is used when and as and when needed. But what I loved about what you said is, look how many stages or things to check and you went through and this before you even got to this. And mushkila, it's typically what happens. I go to this and I don't even bother with the rest of this because I'm getting the result that I want.
This is the problem.
So my question is then, you said one of the most important things when educating, especially people that are young, even people our age, is asking the right questions, right? So when it comes to this, how do I think the big question I have is, how do we shift society? But it's a very difficult thing to do because there's cultural aspects, society, your own, insecurities, things to change our perspective from losing weight to being healthy. Because I think the battle is there. That's where the rest of everything, that's where it all comes from.
This is a battle, but this is, it's happening, by the way. It's a battle.
Do you believe so?
Oh, yeah, it's
really
happening. I mean, on a very small scale.
Fair.
For instance, I'll tell you, 90% of clients who visit me, they're there already. But this is not a representative sample because they're coming to visit me. So it's happening. Why? Because the rise or the surge in naturopathic medicine and alternative medicine and functional medicine is a sign of a failure of conventional systems to treat the root cause. Why would you see this rise? Why would you see post-COVID functional clinics fully booked? Why? Because people realized it's not only about fixing the symptoms or curing the disease. I have to start very early on not to get COVID, right? Not to get sick. I need to fix my immunity. I need to make sure I'm taking the right nutrients because God forbids I catch something, I want to be able to bounce back. This is where the shift happened, post-COVID. The mindset changed. We're still seeing, obviously, a bit of, society resistance, exactly. But this shift happened because of a failure of the conventional system, because people realized, I've been struggling for so long with this issue. They give me this medicine, I stop it. Let's speak about gut health, which is so common now. You have a gut issue, you go, they give you the medicine that calm you down. You take them, you calm down, a month later, a year later, 2 years later, it comes back. But you're not treating the root cause. Same, like a typical example in gut health is reflux.
Yeah, story of my life.
People with reflux are given those acidity inhibitors, if you want, or buffers,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because why? Because if you have reflux, you have a high acidity.
Yes.
Okay? And then we realize that it's not high acidity that causes reflux. It's actually low acidity. And we've been treating it the wrong way. And I am not blaming the medical system, because when a doctor gives a prescription, a gastroenterologist gives a prescription for those medications, he specifically mentions on the prescription, take it for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. How many people have been on these medications for 5, 6, 7 years? Why? Because the moment they stop it, symptoms come back, so I go back to it. They're ruining their gut health.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why we're ruining our microbiome. And by ruining our microbiome, we're stuck in this vicious cycle. And guess what? We are compromising our immunity.
Exactly.
So this is an example.
Yeah.
So now people are much more aware because they've experienced it hands-on. Now my challenge is the new generation. My challenge is this new generation that is literally split in two. You have those who are very pro-natural, clean product trends on social media, and you have the others. And I just had a podcast not long ago about all the hormonal disruptors in our young girls' specifically lives, from makeup to cosmetics that they don't need, to using cheap products, to eating in plastic, to drinking. All of this is also ruining their hormonal health. And these should be our target as well. We as health professionals should not only address parents. We have a big chunk of society that are teens and preteens that are very smart and that won't take advice from their parents, but they will take advice from a health professional who goes on social media and give them the message in a way that they listen to.
Yeah.
So this here also falls, this is our responsibility as well, to be out there.
Yeah, no, I think on the education point you mentioned, I think it is, like I said, split into two big groups. But I would say, my personal opinion, I think the younger generation is way ahead of us when it comes to this stuff in terms of knowledge and information.
I hope so.
You touched on gut health, and obviously inflammation is a massive thing that you work on. I watched a podcast recently that said inflammation is not that it's a good thing, but you have inflammation. It's a sign that it's protecting you from something.
Absolutely.
Which is counterintuitive, right? Because I think inflammation equals bad, but what inflammation is actually protecting something. So give us the inflammation 101.
So inflammation, basically acute inflammation, is a sign that your immune system is working in a healthy way. What is inflammation? Inflammation is actually the response from your immune system when your body is faced with a pathogen. So with an outside invader, right? It could be bacteria, virus, injury, toxin. Your immune system reacts, it creates inflammation in the body to kick this toxin or to kick this invader, right? Now, in a normal body, this acute inflammation, so the immune system does its job and then khalas, it retrieves back. So the little soldiers, I call them, that are the white blood cells or the immune cells, they finish what they're doing and they go back to normal. Now, what's been happening in our society and with chronic inflammation is that we're building one on top of the other. So this inflammation that I caught from a bug is not healing well. It's not healing well. It's compromising my immune system. My immune system is always on the defense. So these little soldiers are being triggered constantly with silly things. Gluten in the food, lactose if I'm lactose intolerant, toxins from chemicals, environmental toxins, smoking, alcohol. They're triggered constantly. So this build-up of inflammation without healing is tiring the body and the immune system. And so when an actual invader comes, an actual virus, an actual bacteria, they are drained. They cannot protect you anymore. So that's this danger of chronic inflammation. Right? So basically, it's a tired system, a tired body that creates this chronic inflammation that leads to many chronic illness and cancers even. So this is why it's very important to tackle inflammation very early on.
So how do I know if I have chronic inflammation? And can you backtrack that? For example, be like, oh, Khalid, okay, you have inflammation, fine, but you've had it for, could you tell me, like, it's been here for like 6 years, 7 years? Could you do that, or that's not?
You could. With investigations, Bala, you can. Because what happens is that, I'll take you through the journey of how we discover inflammation,
Sure.
okay? Definitely there are blood biomarkers that tell you more idea about your inflammatory status. There are many. And to each type of inflammation, because you have arteries inflammation, you have metabolic inflammation, meaning insulin resistance, we measure insulin resistance, cardiac or cardiovascular inflammation, we measure homocysteine. So there are different biomarkers, fine. This is blood test. And mind you, many times in the blood work, it doesn't give you a red flag inflammation, but it gives you a level that is not optimal. So this is where
it's out of range, yeah.
How do we know? When we sit with the client and we discuss symptoms, this is where we pinpoint on inflammation. For instance, you wake up in the morning bloated. Consistently, I'm not saying that night after you stay up late, no. Bloated, puffed, your eyes are swollen, your fingers are swollen, your joints hurt. And your joints hurt whether in the morning or throughout the day. This is a very common sign of inflammation. Gut health issues are the biggest sign of inflammation, because where is 70% of your immunity?
In your gut.
Yeah. Weight gain, unexplained weight gain, especially around the belly area. Unable to sleep. Or I sleep and I wake up at 3 a.m. every night, right? Cortisol imbalance, inflammation. Everything is related to inflammation. So there are many, many other symptoms. So when we sit with the client and I have in my mind this lamp that turns on, okay, yes, it looks like inflammation. This is where the next question is, how long have you been not sleeping well? How long have you been struggling with bloating? How long have you been struggling with sharp pain, for instance, in your gut, or constipation? You might tell me, I don't know, maybe a month, maybe 2, okay. Where were you 2 months ago? Were you traveling? Did you catch a bug? Did you get food poisoning? Did you get flu? So yeah, we backtrack. Because the more you backtrack, the more you know what's the reason behind it, and the more you can treat it.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Listening to you, Tina, has been so interesting in the sense that it's so fascinating, yet it's so complicated, because there's so much you need to know about me as like the client. You touched on it. It's not just what I'm eating, but it's, what's your relationship with food is a big one. The psychology, what's happening in your life. Like, there's so many different things that, play into this. What's one thing, for example, maybe young people or people in general are doing, or could be consuming or doing, that is causing inflammation that maybe we might not be aware of? Like a general thing.
Sugar, number one. And by sugar, I don't mean the occasional brownie, no. I've seen girls, women and girls and men and boys and young men having every single day a sweet breakfast. Cereals, biscuits, honey with I don't know what, fruits, just fruits, dates, 6, 7, 8, 9 dates. So sugar imbalance, blood sugar imbalance is one of the biggest leading factor for inflammation in the body, because it disrupts insulin and it disrupts your body's stress response, okay? And it's a long cascade. We need like a full episode to talk about the cascade of events. But sugar is the most common inflammatory trigger. Number 2 is things that are not necessarily what you eat. Sometimes it's where do you eat? What do you use when you're eating? The plastic in the microwaves, the water in your plastic bottles, the non-stick pans that you're eating with, that you're cooking with. So why are these? Because we speak a lot about forever chemicals or endocrine disruptors, but why are they disruptors? Because they leak chemicals into the body that mimic our hormones, that trick the body into thinking they are the hormones, but they have different effects on the body than hormones. So basically, these chemicals go and sit on the same, for instance, receptors as estrogen. So they block the work of estrogen in girls' bodies, for instance. But what they do is, when they sit on those receptors, they don't just sit and block the receptors, they trigger inflammatory responses. So our inflammation markers increase, and it triggers our immunity, and so on. So I'll give you an example of a scenario. A typical university student, okay? Convenience, right? She needs convenience. She needs convenience. we get our ready meals in plastic. We drink water from plastic bottles. Chances are we're reheating the dish in the microwave in a plastic, even if it says safe. Because I'm not talking about the plastic that melts in microwave, of course not. I'm talking about maybe safe plastic for microwave, but not safe for you, right? So she's eating, I always say she, they're eating their food like this. They're drinking their coffee way late in the evening. It's disrupting their sleep. She or he is not sleeping well, right? They have to wake up early for classes, for instance. So this has disrupted already their circadian rhythm. This disruption of cortisol, along with the exposure to those forever chemicals, has created an explosive in the body that they're not aware of necessarily now when they're 18, 19, 20. But it builds up. Because guess what? 19, you have a strong immunity. So your body is still fighting it. But you will get to a point where your immune system is like, okay, enough is enough. Okay, we've accepted this throughout your 20s, but you don't have the same benefits now. So now you have to work triple the work to be able to reverse all that. While if you were mindful enough from the moment you're 12 on these things without obsessing, and mind you, I haven't spoken about weight and calories, nothing. I'm speaking about quality of food, quality of utensils, quality of living. If you've been raised in a house that taught you this, and you continue to be exposed to the right messages, chances are you're going to get into your late 20s, early 30s, ready for anything. Your immunity is better, your body response is better, your body resilience is better.
So many of the things you said, I was just reflecting on like the last 15 years of my life.
I know all of us.
Yeah, and how many of those mistakes I've made, and maybe if I was more mindful, it would have been so much more helpful. But one thing you touched on at the end there was, and this is what I thought was very interesting, is how did you grow up? What's your I think relationship with food, by the way, is something that is really under talked about.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it with so many people I know in my life that have, eating. But you said there's a difference between an eating disorder and disordered eating. What? Because that to me sounds the same. What's the difference? And talk to us more about having how can we have a positive relationship with food?
Okay, great. There are many parts to your question.
Sorry,
what's the difference between eating disorder and disordered eating is the psychological factor. Eating disorders are psychological disorders, not just food related. So eating disorders are listed as psychological disorders that need both a dietitian specialized in eating disorder and a psychotherapist. You cannot resolve eating disorders because they are a mix of my relationship with food but also my mental state. Okay? Disordered eating could be the beginning of an eating disorder if you catch it early, or it could just very simply be I just don't know, I don't have a proper relationship with food. I eat when I'm upset. I don't know when I'm full. I eat even if I'm full. I can't get off the table if I'm not stuffed. And this has to do with the way you were brought up to finish your plate, right? Because kids around the world are starving. We all, the 80s and maybe the 90s, but I know from myself, kids who grew in the 80s, we all grew up with the idea that you're not supposed to leave food in your plate because it's rude. This is the wrongest thing parents can do, and now they know better. Because number one, let the child pour in their plate. Don't put for them a portion of an adult and expect them to finish it. And if they don't finish it, you're going to guilt trip them. No. Let them put what they think is convenient to them. It's enough for them. And then if they happen not to finish it, there's a million other ways to use this food except shoving them in their mouths just because. No, because this is what will teach them dysregulation.
Yeah.
This is what will put them into dysregulation. So number two, when it comes to positivity or positive relationship with food, it's the conversation, It's the conversation around the table, especially with teenagers or young adults. مش بس teenagers, I'm talking 18, 19, 20. We also tend to have this negative conversation around why did you eat this? don't you think you're gaining weight? Are you sure you want to add this much rice? You had bread in the morning. Do you want to? I'm not saying we just let them. No, I'm not saying abadan. Of course not. Especially if they're struggling with a health issue, or with a hormonal imbalance, or struggling with overweight, and it's affecting them. We have to tackle it. But there's a very fine line between being the parent, the loving parent, and being the obsessive police in the house. And this is where I always tell parents, just give the professional this title and you stay the parent. Take them to a dietitian at a certain age, obviously not at 8 and 9. Take them to a dietitian if you feel the need to, and let her or him deal with the policing if you want, although we never do policing, but stay the loving parent. Keep sharing the love. Keep showing them that they're amazing, they're gorgeous, they're beautiful. But, and this is something I spoke about not long ago, it does not mean dismiss them when your young daughter, and here I will specify daughter, when your young daughter comes to you, she's 15, 16, and tells you as a parent, I feel ugly, or I feel fat, or I can't find any nice clothes to wear. You don't want to go and tell her, oh no, you're gorgeous, don't say that. Even if she is gorgeous, and I'm 100% sure she is in your eyes, and she might be overdoing it, but there's a reason why she came to you and told you that. And you, as a parent, have the responsibility to listen. She's not coming to tell you to find a solution right away. No, she needs someone to listen, because sometimes this is a hidden message. Sometimes she's trying to relay the information to you that I have been told I'm ugly. Someone is telling me I'm fat, even if she doesn't feel it. So it's your responsibility as a parent to let her speak everything around that topic. And this is what we call a teaching or a learning moment. We grab that moment and we let her be. We let her speak. And sometimes it's the boy as well. We let them speak. And at the end, we try to figure out what is it that they're looking for. Do they actually feel, to start with, I, as a parent, know. Is my son or daughter struggling with weight, really? Okay, if that's the case and they see it and it's affecting them, let me act on it right now. Would you like to book an appointment with a professional? You can go alone if you want. I don't need to be with you. Would you like me to go and ask what to do in that case? So it's a conversation. And the more open and the more loving and the more positive we are around that conversation, the more they will come and talk to us about it. And I repeat, it's not only for the 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. You would be surprised how many 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds are struggling in silence because they think they're too old to share these things with their parents. But no, you're not too old to share a struggle that you think should be tackled.
Yeah. I think the big takeaway, I think it's very important, first of all, the distinction you made between an eating disorder and disordered eating, number one. But number two, I think when it comes to, this touches on, kind of rounds off everything we talked about today on the educational side, on guidance, and approaching it from support and a conversation, not judgment, which, you know, we live in the Arab world. We all grew up in very similar households, so we know, you know, we've all, and that's why the examples you gave, I'm like, oh, just flashbacks. Tina, just to round off our conversation for today, if I had more time, I'll talk to you. I have 10,000 more questions, but we'll round it off for today. Our message with this podcast is that success comes in many forms and that learning never stops. And I believe everyone through the course of their life had one, I call it a game changer learning that really just broke that ceiling and changed the way you saw the world, your work, yourself. So if I asked you what was that game changer learning for you, what would you say?
Breast cancer, 100%. It's my personal struggle with the lack of answers that drove me to just start reading on my own and doing my own research. And then it clicked in my brain. And then I decided to switch my career from conventional food guide pyramid nutrition to functional root cause inflammation nutrition. So yeah, definitely it was my struggle. Yeah,
and I can imagine, you know, what you learned from that experience is priceless and obviously has led to all the work you're doing right now. Tina, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was such a fun conversation. This topic I absolutely love.
Thank you.
I learned a lot from you, and I'm sure the audience, whether general public, whether they're students, so much they can take away from this. I want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Guys, to everyone listening, thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Take care.